Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Whidbey Island. My name is Tara Anderson, and along with Mark Simpson and a myriad of gifted contributors, I am honored to serve as your worship leader today. This is our 51st time that we have met for a service since the pandemic commenced, and we shifted to Zoom as our means of connecting in community and worshiping together. Who would have thought when we closed our doors on March 8th last year that we would still be here? And I am so grateful you chose to spend this soggy Sunday morning with us. I would be remiss if I did not thank the very long list of people who have made this service possible. Sarah and Mavis, our tech gurus, Dave, Claire, Marcia, Diane, Mark, Kate, and Gay, who will all be speaking with you this morning. And of course, our own Chalice Choir and David and Ken. Lots of people who shared their time and gifts to bring this message to you. First, an announcement. The board and Reverend Emily have been busy digesting all the shared values you all spoke during phase 1 of our Heart of UUCWI. Phase 2 begins in another 10 days. Together, we will identify the strengths of the congregation as we have experienced them. All active members and friends should have received an email a week ago and a reminder email just last Wednesday inviting you to register for one of 3 sessions, each one of which will last 2 hours. Please note that today is the last day to register. Surely you want to participate as we deepen connections in this beloved community and learn from one another. So if you didn't get or cannot find your email about this, please reach out to Andrea Fink this afternoon so we can ensure you're included. 7 months ago, as a congregation, we decided to donate every Sunday's offering to an organization here on the island whose work was particularly important during this pandemic when so many families are considerably more vulnerable. In the weeks since, we have distributed $16,800. Think about that. Our little congregation has already donated nearly $17,000 to our friends and neighbors. Wow. That's significant outreach. This week, we will support the Toddler Learning Center in Oak Harbor. We gifted them $445 last September. I hope we will do as well or better today. The Toddler Learning Center was established 35 years ago to provide in-home therapy, education, and parent support for children from birth to 3 years of age. Those with developmental delays are the main audience. TLC serves families in both Island and San Juan counties. Their philosophy is that parents are their child's first and foremost teachers. The first 3 years of life are a critical time, which offer promising opportunities for growth in all areas of development. Every child has strengths and deserves maximum developmental opportunities. This is worthy work and reflects our principle of the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Please give generously. This is our last service of February, focusing on the theme of beloved community. We have learned the term beloved community, as coined by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is much larger than our connection here at UUCWI. Yet we certainly refer to ourselves as beloved and ascribe community as a primary reason for our affiliation with UUCWI. So perhaps we can invent another name for our treasured community. Are we a cherished community? Precious? Esteemed? We are certainly a chosen community. Every one of us is here because we want to be. Reverend Emily reminded us on February 7th that we are beloved by the universe. I believe that is a core tenet of Unitarian Universalists, that we are born not in sin, but rather in grace. One of our jobs being alive is to use that grace in service to a healthy world around us, yes? On February 14th, Valentine's Day, our good friend Joseph Bednarik, in his Yes and Now sermon, suggested our principles are only meaningful in action, in animation. Our beloved community isn't abstract, rather it's a result of our animating action. He went on to say, mistakes are fundamental to growth. If we aren't making honest mistakes, it's likely we aren't learning. And then last week, Emily invited us to consider this community as a journey rather than an end unto itself. Beloved community is a practice, not a condition or a destination. This week, we will explore the shadows of this cherished community. Even as we know we lift each other up, we know too that we inevitably fail one another. What is the possibility that rather than those failures destroying the foundation of this community, might they make us stronger, more human, more vulnerable, and hence more genuinely in loving relationship with each other? As Emily said last week, our inevitable conflicts combined with our courageous love can lead us to greater understanding and deeper connections. In this brief time together, through music and spoken words, we will explore how conflict is an essential part of our being in right relationship. Now, please take a deep breath, settle in your chair, and let us worship together. And as you listen to this hymn, notice how your body and mind respond as your heart is invited into a holy place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Do you remember the last time you were in our sanctuary? Do you remember there in the front, the chalice? Do you remember what it looks like? Bronze, two circles enclosing a wide-lipped vessel that holds the flame. No mere decoration. The chalice is one of our most important symbols, and like and like any symbol, it can hold many meanings, some shared, some personal. The Reverend Ritchie suggests that as we light the chalice each Sunday and carry its image with us, we reflect on what it means to us personally, and in particular, in what ways does the flaming chalice illuminate our collective identity? Good questions as we consider our beloved community. As we light a chalice today, I welcome you to join us by lighting one at home. A simple candle will do. Perhaps it is the flame that matters most. These are the words of Reverend Gretchen Haley. It starts here, in this moment. In this breath you feel rising in your chest, the beat building between us, the healing, the hunger, the hope, the courage, the calling, the commitment, the drawing out of a new day. It begins now in the imagination, in this story we weave together, this song we sing, this prayer we bring into being from our hearts to our lips, from our hands to our life, our shared life. It starts here with praise, thanksgiving, forgiveness, and this humble centering confession that we could be wrong, this promise that we make to keep learning, to keep our sense of humor, to keep close this knowing that we are all in this together. Let us begin. Let us worship together. Our congregation has certainly seen its fair share of conflict over its nearly 30 years of existence, but each Sunday we come together to affirm our commitment to our principles and to each other. Our affirmation is a compact, terse but significant. It's our foundation and our essence and heart. It is who we are or strive to be. It is written into our bylaws. As we speak it aloud, notice the word covenant. That is not an accidental word. A covenant is more than a promise. It's a solemn agreement. It presupposes two or more parties coming together, agreeing on our core responsibilities. When two parties make a covenant in the Bible, they are joined together and identified with each other. And a covenant has a practical application to create a community in right relationship with each other, to love each other unconditionally. So please join me in speaking our affirmation aloud. And consider this: how are you invested in this promise? Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is its practice. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. In 2004, the Board of Trustees wrote a policy on disruptive behavior, how to deal with an imaginary member whose behavior might be experienced as truly egregious. But then the question was asked, why wouldn't we have a covenant of behavior so we could never have egregious disruption? So in 2010, Dave Kaufman and others drafted our promises, which were ratified by the congregation, as well as a set of communication best practices, which guide how we speak with one another. These promises are prominently posted in our sanctuary foyer. Were we together in the sanctuary, you would have heard these. You would have these words on the back of your order of service. And here is Dave to share our promises.
Our promises are as follows. As I read them, think about whether you fully believe they represent your promise to everyone in this congregation, friend or not even met friend. We warmly welcome all. We speak with honesty, respect, and kindness. We listen compassionately. We express gratitude for the service of others. We honor and support one another in our life's journeys in times of joy, need, and struggle. We embrace our diversity and the opportunity to share our different perspectives. We address our disagreements directly and openly and see conflict through to an authentic resolution. We serve our spiritual community with generosity and joy, honoring our commitments. We strive to keep these promises, but when we fall short, we forgive ourselves and others and begin again in love.
Thank you, Dave, for helping to write and then for sharing those words. These are not casual promises. And human as we are, just because they're posted on the wall of our foyer doesn't mean we always practice them faithfully. As the 9th promise suggests, we strive to keep these promises, but when we fall short, we forgive ourselves and others and begin again in love. Isn't that the big challenge? To forgive ourselves and to forgive others. There have been times I was so distraught at letting someone down that I have actually been willing to turn my back on that friendship because I couldn't live with the disappointment in myself, much less the disappointment my friend had in me. That last promise isn't cavalier. We forgive ourselves and others, nor is it easy to accomplish. It may well be at the root of every right relationship. I had a conversation with Emily many months ago, telling her that I was distressed and I was no longer in right relationship with her. After some tearful sharing, she asked me if disagreement and right relationship were antithetical to me. And I responded, of course. I love you too much to hold a fundamental disagreement with you. She gently challenged that assumption, and it has worked me now for months. How can I disagree with someone and still love them unconditionally? I notice that there's nothing in our promises about agreement. One of the promises even declares we embrace diversity. I think my definition of diversity may be too small. It has included racial diversity, economic diversity, educational diversity. But how can I sit with major disagreements within this congregation about who's involved with decisions, how a decision is made, who has the power to speak for the congregation, who makes financial judgments, and still be in loving and in right relationship with those others? Perhaps our promises provide me answers if I'd been reading them as they were intended. We address our disagreements openly, directly, and see conflict through to an authentic resolution. As has so often been quoted from our pulpit, we need not think alike to love alike. But do I really believe that deep in my bones? I have a minister friend who just returned from Minnesota, where he stewarded a congregation that was breaking apart over the definition of marriage. Not a problem that we have in this congregation, but it was severing theirs. His challenge to members was, how do we walk hand in hand when we don't see eye to eye? Clearly, we will never always see eye to eye. Can I love you and disagree fundamentally with you about something important to me? It is said that beloved community isn't about the absence of conflict, but the willingness to stay at the table and work through it. Kate Shepard has some thoughts about the art of staying at the table.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today to be a part of this intentional community. It is intentional because we all chose to sign into Zoom today, as we do every Sunday. But even though we want to be here to feel the connections with others, to perhaps to even feel a part of something bigger or beyond our own selves, we bring our emotions with us. And we share those emotions with each other, our joy, our serenity, our passion. Occasionally, our emotions may be negatively impacted by the words or actions of another. And then we have a critical point. We can either carry those painful emotions around and let them fester and cause distance between us, or we can take a risk and step into the dance of forgiveness. I do call it a dance because forgiveness is a learned skill. It takes practice. I dance with people I care about. The dance has steps that create movement, and in the case of forgiveness, that is movement towards healing. And ultimately, both of us are changed by that interaction. As a nurse psychotherapist, I learned that underneath feelings of anger, resentment, frustration, jealousy, defensiveness, or disappointment, there is inevitably fear or hurt. I am so much more able to communicate my feelings if I can listen to the music in my heart and identify my fear or hurt. The fear might be as simple as, what might be taken from me? What might be asked of me? Will I be left out? Hurt might be related to feeling invisible or feeling like my thoughts or my own desires don't matter, feeling like I don't matter. I didn't do a good enough job, or I am being judged as lacking. I believe our intentional community here would benefit from a COVID debriefing when we are back in the sanctuary. There's been so much emotion surrounding COVID, especially fear and hurt. It might be fear because your actions increase my risk of exposure, or perhaps I feel hurt because others entered the sanctuary, but I was told no. Or perhaps I feel hurt when you tell me that I am more conservative than others about COVID safety. Or perhaps I'm less conservative about others. Or my gosh, you got a COVID vaccine before I did. What's wrong with me that I can't even find a COVID vaccine? You didn't tell me that you and 5 of your friends were going to a COVID vaccine clinic. These are all important emotions that can be healed if we can talk them through. Now, here's the vulnerable first step in the dance of forgiveness. Rather than act out my feelings and hope that someone guesses what I'm feeling, I have to be willing to use the words. My feelings are hurt. Unfortunately, as intelligent humans, we often want to attach a laundry list of all the ways in which we've been hurt. What that does, though, is it often causes the other person to focus on whether or not they agree with what's on our list, or to look at the list and see what part am I responsible for and then reject everything else. But if I can just share my simple emotion, I feel afraid or I feel hurt, within a caring community such as this one, I believe our vulnerability would be received with compassion. The next step in this dance of forgiveness is for the recipient. Listen to the words. Don't question the validity of the other's feelings, but ask yourself, as a caring person, how do I feel about the simple fact that this other person is hurting or afraid? If you can avoid stepping into judgment, you will undoubtedly be sorry that someone you care about is hurting. And then, taking it one step further, I believe no one here intentionally hurts another. And the words, "I'm sorry," neither accept nor reject blame. So I ask you to think about, for a moment, think about a relationship that feels less than you would like it to be. Perhaps because there have been words between you. Now, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what might it be like for you to say to that other person, "I am sorry for my part in the hurt between us"? Just thinking about that may cause your heart to race a little bit or your hands to feel clammy. That's okay. That's normal. And that dance step gets easier with practice. What if you aren't ready to do the dance of forgiveness? As Thich Nhat Hanh says, that's okay too. But don't leave the other person hanging. Let the other person know that you care. Set a date to talk. "I'm not ready to talk now, but I want to help get us back on track. Can we touch base next Thursday?" I have to mention 4 words or phrases that may stop the music for the dance of forgiveness. The first is the laundry list. If it helps you to write that out and reflect on it, do so, but keep the list to yourself. The reality is that sharing that laundry list just starts the blame game, and that can feel like you're doing a twist on a full stomach. The second big word is but. "I am sorry for my part, but," because what the recipient will hear is, you just negated your apology. The third phrase is, "there is nothing to talk about." That could be interpreted in so many ways, and it probably will not promote healing. Perhaps a more emotionally honest phrase would be, "I am still hurting." The fourth term is, "we will have to just agree to disagree." That is dismissive, and it really is the antithesis of healing. I will always ask the other person, "tell me what's underlying that statement." In a healthy dance of forgiveness, each person leaves the dance feeling better. That doesn't mean it's all gone, no hard feelings, because frankly, when someone steps on your bare toes and they're wearing cleats, that takes time to heal. Again, that's okay. So let the other person know you want to heal the distance, and let's set a date to check back. So I'm going to take this opportunity to say to everybody here in this wonderful congregation, I am truly sorry for my part of any hurt between us. And I hope that we can begin again in love.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kate, for your honesty and your wisdom. We who belong to communities, this community, the larger community, a personal relationship, are sometimes subject to a kind of roller coaster effect. An interaction may cause us to be let down, our feelings hurt, but we are also lifted up. A kind remark, a thoughtful gesture, help in difficult times. As Kate suggested today, healing begins with acknowledging that you have been let down. And that begins owning the emotions, anger, sadness, isolation, loneliness. It can be hard to put a label on those feelings sometimes, but doing so is a step toward healing. And when you are lifted up, gratitude for that action is sustaining for you and for those around you. So if you have been hurt and would like to share that feeling today, send us a message in the chat window naming the emotion you have. Send us just one word, like ouch, sad, tears. Exclamation points may help. Don't fret over finding the perfect word. Think of this as more of a beginning of healing and reconciliation. So please send us your feelings. One word. Thank you for sharing those one-word emotions. I feel that there's a lot behind them. It's hard to do. Thank you. Now, if you would like to express gratitude for a time when you were lifted up, send us a one-word message that expresses that emotion, like yes, or peace, or hugs. So please send us your feelings. One word. Thank you for sending your words of gratitude. It is good to end our joys and sorrows on that note. One word may not seem like much, but it is a beginning toward healing and toward gratitude. So now I will light one candle for all who have been hurt and those who have been lifted up by the actions of others. We are fortunate to have the choir with us today, virtually that is. David asked me to mention a few things about the performance and the music. First, many thanks to Bill Burney, our sound engineer. He's volunteered countless hours to this work over the past year, so much gratitude to him. And of course, appreciation for our singers. Recording your own voice can be tremendously humbling, and our choir members have to overcome that inner critic to share those recordings each time they perform. They have also donated a great deal of time, of their own time, to this process. So from the congregation to you, thank you for your time and your talent and your courage. And a liner note about the music, David notes that Abby Bettinas, the composer of Love is Love, the hymn, dedicates this song to the victims and survivors of hate crimes everywhere, and specifically for those at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando on June 12, 2016. Bettinas says, "Love is often the bravest thing we do. May love prevail." The choir's performance is accompanied by a video, thanks to Mavis Kaufman's video magic. And in the video, you will notice a photo taken at a Detroit inner city Montessori school. The photographer, Marco Mancinelli, says the children were all seated on the floor in a circle, listening to a story. The little girl leaned over to lay her head on the little boy's lap, and he very nonchalantly lifted his arm to accommodate her. The photo was printed full size on the back page of the Detroit News the next day and is titled Age of Innocence. What a powerful demonstration of acceptance, trust, and beloved community. Mavis spoke to Mr. Mancinelli, and he gave us his permission to share.
All we need is love, love, love. 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 All we need is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is love, is love, is love, is love, is love. All we need is
I'm glad for that. Speaking of uplifting, I have to thank the choir one more time for that. Thank you. And David Edwards. As I mentioned earlier, in 2010, some thoughtful members of our congregation wrote a communications best practices document. It's on our website, but how many of you have read it, much less taken it to heart? Please listen and think about how these words fall into your heart as Marcia Morgan and Claire Moore, then Mark and Diane Saffitz share.
Good morning, everyone. In order to create a culture of respect for one another, I will treat others as I would be treated, with respect, caring, sensitivity, kindness, and compassion.
I will include strangers, I will greet them, and I will include visitors as well as friends and members.
I will speak for myself only.
I will honor the confidentiality of shared personal information.
I will feel empowered to state my feelings when I am dealt with unkindly.
I will address issues with others directly and not through third parties, avoiding harmful gossip.
I will remember that how I communicate shapes my relationships.
I will listen to and encourage all contributions, employing empathy.
I will avoid talking over others or dominating conversations.
I will express gratitude, appreciation, and affirmation generously.
I will give credit for ideas that I borrow or build upon.
Thank you, Marcia and Claire. We will continue sharing our communication best practice.
In order to create a culture of respect for one another,
You can handle that really well.
I did.
The goof. Oh, I
in
didn't.
order to create a culture of respect for one another,
I will show respect for diverse perspectives and opinions that may not match my own.
I will give timely, honest, specific, constructive feedback when appropriate.
I will welcome and expect skepticism when my ideas are presented.
I will seek consensus when possible and use democratic processes when it is not.
I will ask myself if I have contributed to a conflict.
I will request time out to reflect on these practices when needed.
I will follow the board policy on disruptive behavior to resolve serious problems.
I will apologize and seek pardon when I violate those practices and forgive in return with love.
In order to use electronic communications effectively,
I will give timely responses to requests.
I will restrict copies to those with a need to know.
I will avoid use of email for matters that require face-to-face interactions.
I will avoid sending communications when angry.
Thank you, Claire and Marcia, Diane and Mark. These best practices, as well as other communication best practices for writing and meeting and conduct and leadership, are on the web. You will find them on the members page on our website under the heading Documents. Speaking of best practices, I've come to appreciate the values expressed in them and in our covenant even more as I reflect on how they apply to any community. This includes personal relationships, that includes marriage. Gay, to whom I've been married for 40 some years, and I have been thinking a lot about conflicts and recovery. So we're going to talk about them. Always, in fact. Earlier in this service, Tara asked if it's possible that our conflicts not destroy our community and its foundations, but rather make us stronger, more human. I say yes. And I think the how part might be informed by looking at our own experiences, if not for answers, at least directions toward them. Marriage is kind of a microcosmic community. I believe it illustrates how conflicts arise and how they might be resolved. As Gay will point out, we've had our share, big things and little things, and maybe most threatening of all are those things that get swept under the rug. Anger and hurt piled on top of anger and hurt. I don't mean to be glib about this, but we've become stronger along the way. We understand each other better. We understand ourselves better. Sometimes a working resolution is the best you can do, but the awareness allows you to let conflicts be there and perhaps see beyond them. So it's Gay's turn now. She has the gift of going beyond these generalities.
I'd like to take you to my house 25 years ago. We had a blueberry farm. Mark was consulting from home. We had a 7-year-old and a teenager. I'm pretty outgoing and I enjoy visiting with friends and serving them dinner. Mark does as well, but maybe about 1/3 as often as me. Something like this must have happened at least 1,000 times. Hey, Mark, is it okay with you if we invite Nancy and Dave over for dinner tonight or tomorrow night? Mark, no, maybe next week. I think next week would be better. And then to myself, oh, of course, no. No surprises for him. He always has to get used to the idea and get prepared. Then there were things regarding our kids. Emily often dropped her backpack and school supplies first thing inside the house, on the floor beside the kitchen door after arriving home from school in the afternoons. Those items usually sat there for at least a couple of hours or maybe overnight. But when Mark walked by the pile, he would call Emily on it, and he would be very insistent that she pick them up and not use that spot on the floor for her things. He would be a little mad at her because she did it often, and some of that anger came out in his voice. I had felt some sympathy for her, just coming in from a tiring day and feeling the stresses of an adolescent life. A part of me resented him making that demand on her. I wanted her to be able to relax and be herself now that she was at home. For many years in our marriage, these kinds of interactions made for a lot of low-level stress between both Mark and me, a lot of frustration. We had never been very good at talking through our disagreements. We never learned the skills to deal with them. And so these frustrations mounted. But even though we struggled with our conflicts, I wasn't thinking that they were a problem or something I needed to pay attention to. There came a time when I started to be able to delineate conflicts and disharmony in our relationship, to delineate the conflicts from everything else. I started to see it as a thing. Mark and I were starting to learn markers and characteristics of this thing. And now I was starting to see it. At the same time, we were helped further by employing some simple processes that helped us to better see and examine these conflicts. We had also come to recognize that even the smallest issues deserved our attention. And they also provided lots of practice for us, helping reinforce our new approach. In time, we learned that we could dismantle many of the issues that came between us. The payoff that I didn't expect was a space for more connection and closeness between us. In considering this month's theme of beloved community, I've been wondering, can we draw any parallels in the way we've learned to negotiate the relationships we have with our spouse or in another intimate relationship with the way that we navigate conflict here in this community, for example? Interpersonal conflict in this community. Imagine this, the kind of run-of-the-mill ruffle that might come up anywhere. Often these are such small matters that we don't think much about them. Maybe deservedly, maybe not. Sometimes it catches you off guard. Other times it involves a person who you've had an issue with before. Maybe the same pattern plays out repeatedly. Other times you might not even notice that the person you've just spoken to is having a problem with you. I believe that these everyday conflicts are more deserving of our attention. I'll admit I am like the frog. You know, if you put a frog in a pot of water, put the pot on the stove and heat it gradually the frog does not move. In other words, I think we sometimes ignore conflicts, not even seeing it, including those between us here in this community. For me, it starts with noticing, watching out for the little hurts inside myself and in the people I interact with. Attending to those interpersonal conflicts can deepen the connections I have with others. Notice the conflict. Focus on it. If I chip away at it, I might be surprised to see that something nice is growing there.
Thank you, Gabe. Our closing hymn is Let It Be a Dance, performed by David Edwards and Ken Merrill. I think these words by Carter Hayward serve as a good introduction to the hymn. He says, "We are not automatic lovers of self, others, world, or God. Love does not just happen. We are not love machines, puppets on strings of a deity called love. Love is a choice, not simply or necessarily a rational choice, but rather a willingness to be present to others without pretense or guile. Love is a conversation to humanity, a willingness to participate with others in the healing of a broken world and broken lives. Love is the choice to experience life as a member of the human family, a partner in the dance of life, rather than as an alien in the world or as a deity above the world, aloof and apart from human flesh." I think celebrating our connections is a dance, just as is working through our disagreements. We follow, we lead. Okay, now for something a little different, a virtual community dance. I invite you to turn on your video, but please stay muted. This won't work if everybody's sound is inadvertently turned on. So just turn on your video only. And if you don't want to participate, keep yours off. We will use these 3 minutes of beautiful music to really connect with one another. Sarah will spotlight as many folks as she can. You will see a gray banner on your screen indicating you are now spotlighted. Do a little dance in your seat or with one another, or wave or send kisses. Use this opportunity to reinforce all the belovedness of this community. Let us be a dance.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn, spin. Let your body learn to bend. like a willow with the wind. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And around we go again. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance.
Oh, wasn't that fun? I am just full of gratitude for you, my spiritual family. As you extinguish your chalices there in your homes, I offer these closing words from the Reverend Victoria Safford, who's the minister of White Bear UU Church in Minnesota. She writes, "A covenant is a living, breathing aspiration made new every day. It can't be enforced by consequences, but it may be reinforced by forgiveness and by grace when we stumble, when we forget, when we mess up. Every Sunday, we repeat in unison the affirmation, love is the spirit of this congregation. Each week, quietly, aloud, I promise I will dwell in peace. And then I don't live peacefully at all. By Monday afternoon or Tuesday at the latest, I'm living fearfully again, or acting meanly or self-servingly. I say that I will seek the truth in love, and then proceed to act quite otherwise, closing my ears and shutting down my open mind and heart, seeking instead the validation of my own narrow, safe opinion. I say our great covenant is to help one another, and then I forget to do it. I thank Reverend Stafford for speaking what is so true for me. I want to believe that conflict is part of the rich soil from which our cherished Whidbey community arises. Our conflicts can energize us. After all, if I don't care about you, I won't waste my precious energy being in conflict with you. The very fact that we can challenge each other means it's worthwhile, our staying together. May we continue to covenant to be our best in this cherished community. And may we forgive ourselves and each other when we inevitably stumble. Blessed be, namaste, shalom, and amen.